Here is a proof of the product rule for those who are interested. Like I said, you won't need to know these proofs, but they're pretty clever, especially if you think math is something you might want to study. You really do a lot of proofs at higher levels of math. Okay, so here's the product rule as we know it. Derivative of f of x times g of x, f prime of x times g of x times f of x times g prime. Okay, where does that come from? So of course, to prove this, we got to go back to the definition of the derivative. So this is what it would look like. So we're taking that derivative and, well, what would that first part look like? If it's f of x, then of course it's f of x plus h. So if we're multiplying, then we need f of x plus h times g of x plus h minus the original all over h with the limit as h approaches 0. Okay, makes sense. Now this very first step, I'm going to show you that this step is the genius, and it's going to seem like kind of strange and why would you do that, but it's going to open up the whole thing. So here's what we're going to do. Again, no need to copy this proof. If you really want to, by all means, go for it. But maybe, you might be just as well just watching. Okay, so of course we have that limit. Here's what's happening. There's our first term there, minus f of x, g of x is here. We're going to subtract and add the same term in the middle. And, of course, these would cancel out. So we have the same thing that we started with, but we're going to use these middle terms. So what do? We subtracted f of x plus h times g of x, plus, then we add it back, f of x plus h times g of x. Okay, why would that be helpful? What are we going to do with that? Okay, we're going to just work with the algebra here. And it barely fit on my paper on this side, as you can see. I'm going to think of these first two terms over h, plus, and then these second two terms over h. We're going to think of that separately. Okay. Then we're going to take the limit of this plus the limit of this. We're going to take the limits separately. Okay. So I'll try and slide up so it's a bit more clear. Limit h approaches 0, f of x plus h, g of x plus h minus f of x plus h, g of x over h. Limit as h approaches 0, and then these second terms, f of x plus h, g of x minus f of x, g of x all over h. Okay, how is this getting us anywhere? Notice both terms in the numerator here have f of x plus h. So we're going to be able to factor that out. Over here, both terms have g of x. We're going to be able to factor that out. So here's what's going to happen. Okay. Limit as h approaches 0, f of x plus h, g of x plus h minus g of x all over h, right? That's what would be left. We're taking that f of x plus h all the way out of the numerator and then even to the side so we can really see what's going to happen clear. And then the g of x factors out into the side, leaving f of x plus h minus f of x over h. Okay. There's only one more step, and that's the product rule. And we have it. Okay, so let me show you where this comes from. Let's think about this limit right here. Plug in the 0, right? If we plug in the 0 there, then we have f of x. Okay. Oh, sorry about that, little breeze. Don't plug the 0 in here, but think about what's happening. We're taking the limit as h approaches 0 for g of x plus h minus g of x over h. This, with that limit as h approaches 0, that is the definition of g prime. Right? This limit there, that's g prime. Okay, then plus, hey, what's this first part? Limit as h approaches 0 for, that's the definition of f prime, and then we multiply it by the g of x. Now this is written in the reverse order from the way that I typically present it, with the f prime, here and everything switched. But, we could rearrange it, and there's your product rule. That's it.